I spent 5 years working at a warehouse, and here's what I've learned. There's a lot of pros and cons, a lot of things you got to look out for. But if you're just getting into that field, for one, I'm personally not in it anymore, but I spent 5 years and I know a little bit of something when it comes to working at a warehouse. Now, the warehouse that I was personally working at, it wasn't Amazon, it wasn't any of those big facility warehouses. This was a smaller company, still a decent sized warehouse, but it was a flooring distribution center. So essentially, it was a warehouse that housed flooring. So the stuff that you step on in most homes. Now, if you have carpet, there could be flooring underneath that carpet, but most of the time, it's either carpet, laminate, or just regular flooring. And we were responsible for delivering, not installing though, not installing, just delivering the flooring, making sure everything's good. That was my first position at that place. Eventually, I worked my way up to being a manager, and that was a fun story too. But when it comes to being a driver, it was fun at first because I'm over here like, okay, I'm gonna get a workout. I'm gonna be good. You know, I'm getting paid to work out pretty much. Now it doesn't really work like that. The first job I ever had, also I was working with my brother. The first job was by the beach, and we had to bring some to the third floor, second floor, then first floor. I'm like, man, this is easy. Um, it was pretty easy because it was the first time doing it, but over the span of 4 or 5 years, yeah, it started getting old, real quick. So here's the thing about when you go up the first floor, and here's a pro when you're working at a warehouse, right? If you're working for like a delivery warehouse type job, you could qualify for bonuses. That's a position that I was in. So every time we went to the first or second floor, or every time we went to the second or third floor, we would get a bonus. So the way it works with each bundle, it's 50 cents per floor. So if we have to go to the second floor, that's 50 cents per bundle. Now we'll be carrying them like this, and these bundles are anywhere from 40 to 110 pounds each. And then the pallets can range anywhere from 30 bundles to 52 bundles. And you'd have to do that 52 separate times. If you go into the third floor, you're getting an extra dollar. So they tack on 50 cents each floor, right? So you're going to the third floor, you're getting a dollar each bundle. Now keep in mind, I was working with my brother, so I had to split that. So let's say we did 100 bundles to the third floor. With that 50-cent math that we just did earlier, that's $1 per bundle. If we're doing 100 bundles, that's $50 each. It's pretty good, but it does take a little bit of time. And on top of that, we're getting our regular pay. And the job was cool enough to offer five hours of overtime every single week. So that was another pro when it came to the warehouse job. If you have a warehouse job that is willing to give you overtime, you were at the right place. One thing to keep in mind though, try not to get stuck, right? And what I mean by try not getting stuck is the reason why I was at this place for 5 years is because I was stuck. Nobody else's fault but my own. I literally had these thoughts like, oh, like, am I gonna find a better job out there? Where am I gonna go? What am I gonna like? Those thoughts started going into your mind. But if you're really determined to find something, first you need to be targeted. You need to know what you're going for, job wise. And if it's something that you're not trying to do long term, meaning like 10 plus years, yeah, figure out a game plan, figure out where you're trying to go next, and then execute. In my case, I came across a job. It was a manager job of another warehouse. This was a clothing facility, and I eventually took that job. So I went from manager at the flooring distribution center to the clothing center. Two different warehouse jobs. But that wasn't part of the 5 years. That was an extra year somewhere else. But a lot of different things between those two jobs, but a lot of parallels as well. Another con about warehouse working, right, is it's warehouse work. It's not the dirtiest, it's not the craziest or toughest or anything like that, but it is warehouse work. So if it's not busy, if you're not doing your specific job, they're gonna want you to do something else. They're gonna want you to clean. They're gonna want you to do this or that. Usually, what I would do if it's like an hour or two left in the day, I would literally just the bosses and managers and stuff were cool about people leaving early. Plus, it's helped them. They don't have to spend money when they don't have to. So that's how I looked at it because I'm always trying to help others. So I'm like, I'll stay, but I mean, if there's really nothing to do that benefits the business, like I'll just leave. Like I could find work to do somewhere else. And then me personally, like if there's nothing to do, I don't want to do uh, clean the bathrooms. That's not my thing. Props to people that do that, but that wasn't my thing. The people that I work with are kind of gross, so wasn't trying to do that. But so every time like there was nothing to do, my job was done. I would literally clock out and then go do either I think Instacart was like the main thing. I would just do side work. And then if it was snowing, there was snowing apps in my area. I live in Massachusetts. There was snow apps in my area where I could pick up jobs, removing snow from places, right? So that's another thing. You want to have a backup plan because you never know if, let's say, again, if it's snowing, right? And my job closes for the day. They say, hey, don't come in. There's no work today. Well, now I don't get paid for that day. Some companies will pay you if that's a situation where something's happening where it's not your own fault, and they'll just pay for it. They'll just pay you for the day. My job was like that when it came to like holidays and stuff, but when it came to something like that, most of the time, I'm trying to remember because I don't want to speak negative if it wasn't the case, but I can't remember if they paid for days like that. Where if it was like snowing, I don't think they did. So what I would do in that situation was I would literally just do Instacart or I can't remember if I did Lyft at the time, but I do any of those apps and make up the time that I would make if I got paid that day at my regular job. So that's another thing. Always have a backup plan. And then something that I learned, right? One big thing that I learned from working at the warehouse for so many years is no matter how long you've been there, it doesn't matter how long you've been there, you can't change people, right? What do I mean by that? Well, there'd be things that need to be fixed in the business, and no matter how long you've worked there, or for me, in my case, I felt that because I started at this position, which was the driver, people just looked at me as just the driver, even though like I already like moved up and like got the managerial position and all that, still looked at me as a driver. So anytime I'd come with good insight, things to change, stuff like that, it'd just be brushed under the rug. But then I remember this specific situation. I don't remember what needed to be changed, but something needed to be changed. Oh, we were labeling. So what we would do as managers, right? We would get the orders together for the next day. So we make sure the customers are all lined up for the next day and then get their wood, like whatever the flooring, all that wood, whether it's one pallet, two pallets, we would get them organized for each customer. Now, some people will get the same type of flooring, same size, same brand and everything. So it's like, all right, we didn't label them. So my idea months before it actually got implemented was, hey, sometimes there's times where two different customers are getting the same flooring, but then one person's getting like 40 bundles, another one's getting 38. Not that much of a difference, but when it comes to like price per bundle, it does make a difference. Because if a customer paid for an extra 2 bundles, then they should get that, right? So my thing was like, hey, they waste paper. At that place they wasted a lot of paper. So I was like, let's use paper and label each of these pallets that are actually paid for and going out to customers. And they said, oh yeah, like I'll bring it up to this guy, I'll bring it up to the boss, and nothing got brought up. So whatever. I was like, all right, so we'll just kind of have to guesstimate where these are going. Fast forward a couple months later, another guy brings this up, and he got hired. He's not like he was on the same level as us, but he would manage a different aspect of the warehouse. So because me and my brother weren't in the warehouse as often, they needed to hire another person to manage a different section of the warehouse. So he brought up the fact, oh, we should label these pallets for when they're going out, label them with whatever customer is going out. And I'm like, didn't I just say that a couple months ago? Like, and I talked to the manager, I talked to the boss, who's the owner of the whole place. I'm like, I literally suggested this months ago. Like, why are we doing it because this guy's saying it? And maybe they just didn't see it because it was, I don't know, maybe it was phrased a certain, I don't know. I can't read their minds. But to me, I took that personal. I'm like, damn, like I'm over here giving insight on things that should be changed. They could have got changed months ago, but now someone else comes in, they have a fresh lens, right? Or we have a fresh lens of them. We don't know them really, but like, we take their insight. But because I started at a certain position as the driver, they're like, oh, this guy's a driver or whatever, like whatever, right? I feel like I wasn't gonna take them seriously. So that was my thing. Maybe it's the case in wherever you're working or wherever you're about to work if you're gonna be working in a warehouse. But yeah, you can't change things. You can't change things that are already existing. If that makes sense. Even if they ask you like, what can we do to make this better? One person's input is not going to change anything. So don't over stress things. Like, yeah, it's good to put input, but don't expect change to be put towards that input, right? Um, let's see. Another thing, I was working in a warehouse I won't say the company name, but it's a pretty big company. It's like a food distribution center. I only did that for like 4 or 5 months. Right after that, this was in like 2014. Right after that, I went into life insurance sales. That's another story for another video. But the food distribution center was an interesting one too, right? So we already covered a completely dry warehouse. I didn't cover the clothing warehouse yet, but I'll get to that in a bit. And then the food distribution warehouse, which is one of the most common warehouses that are out there, that that will be broken down into three different sections, right? We have the dry, we have the fridge, and we have the freezer. Now, because this food distribution center, it's a worldwide company, right? They they ship out product and food containers to certain restaurants. Restaurants will put in their order. We were in charge of picking those orders. So I was pretty much essentially an order picker. Um, and it paid pretty good to start. It was it was an easy job, but it wasn't. So we drove these like forklifts. They're almost like, I think Amazon does the same thing. Can't remember. But we drove these forklifts, and we would get an order sheet, right? So we do 3 orders at a time. It'd be 3 pallets. And I'm trying to remember how we picked the order. It was like a machine that we had. It would tell it, a headset. It would tell us what area to go to. It'd be like 506 section B or something like that, for example. And then we had to go get that, make sure it's the right size, right quantity, and then put it on the pallet. And then we position the pallet so that we'd be able to stack on top of it. Luckily, most of the products were like box shaped. Towards the end of, the beginning, so the way we would pick the beginning of everything we picked was mainly heavy stuff. And then once you worked your way towards the end, it was much lighter stuff. So like, for example, we'd have heavy cans, like canned tomatoes, canned tomato sauce, canned fruits, just heavy products. And there'd be boxes of 6, of 8, big boxes. We'd use that to make the base of the pallet. And then once we're working our way up, we start to put the lighter stuff, the weird shaped stuff towards the top. And then after that, the pallets will get wrapped, and then they get organized to be picked up by the trucks. That was literally the job at the food distribution center. That job was insane. One, because it was an overnight shift. Now, that's not going to happen with every single warehouse job in that environment, but that was the situation I was in. That's all they were hiring for. I wanted to work there in the mornings, but overnights were the only ones that were available at the time. So I worked primarily in the dry, which is dry product like paper towels, food containers, canned goods in boxes, different stuff like that. Seasonings, another one. If you ever been to a Costco's, those warehouses look just like that, and you're going through those aisles with a forklift, which can reach, I think, up to 10 miles an hour, I believe, 15 maybe. And yeah, so that was the dry. There was also the fridge, which would reach the temperature of a refrigerator. That had stuff like, trying to remember what was in the fridge and what was in the freezer. I know the freezer had meats, meats. There's another section with cheese, a couple other things. I think I'm trying to remember what the fridge had, but anyways, the freezer was exactly what it sounds like. It was a freezer, completely cold, cold everything. You had to be careful carrying the freaking chicken because they were in 40, 50 pound boxes, but there was like chicken juice that can come out of the thing. It was annoying, really annoying to deal with. That was the grossest part of that freezer job. There was people, and every job has this person. There was people that literally claim to act like the cold doesn't bother them. So they would literally just stay in the freezer. One, because the orders are a little smaller there. So like the dry was the biggest area. It was probably the size of like a small, maybe half of a football field. So 50 yards or so, maybe a little bit bigger. I'm trying to picture in my head. Actually, no, it was the size of a football field. So it was a pretty big, area. But again, easy to go through if you're on a forklift. Then the fridge was the medium sized area, and then the freezer was the smallest area. So that area, you didn't have to go too crazy. I think the freezer and the fridge were together. So the freezer had the meats, and once you went through that area, you get to the fridge. That's what it was. I remember now. So, yep. So you'd start in the freezer, then go into the fridge, and it wasn't too bad, honestly. But if you're working there full time, in the freezer area, yeah, it gets a little crazy. So everyone was training in each different spot. Super fun job. I just did not like the overnight aspect of it. Plus, it was getting very tiring with the work and the coworkers. Coworkers were completely nice. I was a little too nice because I was one of the only ones with the vehicle. A lot of people asked me for rides. I didn't say no. I would help these dudes get home. But keep in mind, it was like 4 or 5 a.m. I'm like, I want to go home. These dudes want to go a couple cities further than where I'm going. It was getting a little bit too much. So eventually I have to kind of say like, hey, like I'm not going to be driving people around no more. I just want to go home. So whatever. They didn't never pay me any gas or anything. I never asked for it. But, I was always, like I said, always helping people, always going out of my way, even if it's for my detriment. If I were to say it, I'd take it from my grandma. My grandmother was like that. She just recently passed on Thanksgiving, but her whole life she'd always give back, and I used to be like that. A little bit, still like that, but yeah, don't be too nice to people, guys. It's cool to be nice, cool to be, you don't want to be you don't want to be an ass to people, but just set boundaries, right? You don't want to be that person that's consistently giving people rides or known to be helping people all the time, because then people are going to take advantage. It doesn't matter who it is, or how nice they are, they're always going to take advantage. So that's one thing to keep in mind. But that's what I learned in a warehouse, guys. Actually, before I end the video, I have a bonus warehouse job. I forgot. Clothing. And these are all the warehouse jobs that I can think of off the top of my head. Now, there's warehouses that deal with metals and stuff like that, but I haven't worked in those before. But when I was manager at this clothing warehouse, this was a smaller warehouse, and I ran the whole thing by myself. That place was interesting because it was the best paying warehouse job that I've done, because I just started there as a manager. And my input was taken more serious. So it was a smaller company, and I was directly in contact with the owner of the company. The lady was cool for the most part until until like I started telling her about me starting school. So I was this was a couple years ago too. So I'm actually about to graduate with my bachelor's in cybersecurity, but at the time I haven't started that yet, and I was letting her know, and she was kind of not about it. She wanted me to focus on being a manager of a warehouse. That should have been the first red flag of that place. Yeah. Maybe I'll put this in another video, but I'll do this quickly, right? So that was one of the big red flags about that place. But let's say, long story short, she was sending me a text. So I'm good with tech. She was sending me a text because I was fixing her printer, and I won't go into specifics. I'll save this for another video. But pretty much, what happened was she sent a text that was meant to her husband or partner or whatever, and it went to me, and it was calling me stupid, and I was not taking that. So that eventually led to me leaving there. The fact that she wasn't okay with me being in school and wanted me to focus on being a manager, that I was like, no, I'm not trying to. This isn't my long-term job anyways. Like, I'm not trying to stay here that long. And I eventually put in my 2 weeks and I was out of there. But there is a story to tell, and I'll save that for another video. But guys, those are the things that I learned, and the main thing is just not to be too nice, and just try not to change anything. Like, things are there, and everyone's in different stages of their lives. People are coming in, going out. Don't try to change something that's not yours. Like, you're just there for a moment, and then whenever your next goal or your next journey is, that's when you're gonna go out and get it. So hopefully that video, people can relate to it. I'm gonna be posting. I'm gonna be posting a series on if you can survive off of gig work. I just posted one yesterday, talking about Lyft. Tomorrow I'll be posting the one on Instacart. So guys, stay tuned for that. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.